Good day to all of you out there watching Agenda. Welcome to the program. Today is October 20. Sorry, I just keep thinking of that month for some strange reason. October 20, 2020. It's a triple 20 today. I hope it's a great Tuesday for all of you out there. And I do hope that you are all feeling well and grateful to be alive, because I definitely am. I had a slight accident yesterday, and I thank God that He wasn't prepared to accept me into the pearly gates, because it was kind of close. In any case, enough of the drama. Today, we are going to tackle something very important for many Filipinos, whether or not you are a terrorist. And of course, I refer to the Anti-Terror Law, for which the implementing rules and regulations have been put together, have been written, have been crafted, and we will now find out whether the anti-terror law takes effect, in spite of the fact that there are at least, I think, 30 petitions, excuse me, before the Supreme Court to nullify the law in whole or in part. So for that purpose, we will be speaking with Undersecretary Adrian Sugay of the Department of Justice, Anti-Terrorism Council spokesperson. May council na, may spokesperson pa. And Attorney Howard Calleja, he is a law professor, petitioner against the Anti-Terrorism Law. And we will also speak with Attorney Domingo Cayosa, a regular on agenda. He is the president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and to get a sensing of what the lawyers in general feel about the anti-terror law. And after we discuss the anti-terror law thoroughly, we will be interviewing a good friend, someone I have known for many years, and someone who wrote the book Motivate. And there's the book for you, Motivate. Hindi ko po pinopromote yung libro. I am not promoting the product because it's been in the market for quite some time already. But I would like to invite all of you, particularly the young parents out there, to give a listen. Listen to this interview with Peter Tanchi, senior pastor of the Christ Commission Fellowship, because the book that he wrote and a series that he's currently teaching right now in CCF is something very fundamental for all parents, regardless of your religious orientation, regardless of your status, whether you are a couple, single parent, basta may anak kayo, you will learn so much from this interview with Peter Tanchi. Because as I listened to Peter when he was teaching this, he's been teaching it for the last 3 weeks, excuse me, 4 weeks, I think. I just kind of cross-referenced it to my parenting skill or his parenting history and that of my wife. And kasi graduate na kami, empty nest na kami. My daughter is now in the University of The Hague in the Netherlands. And when I was cross-referencing what Peter Tanchi was teaching and what I was implementing when my daughter Hannah was still, a child, I realized they're so fundamental, and they are what makes a child strong and well-grounded. And the relationship in the family is what makes it really fantastic. So in any case, do join us today as we tackle anti-terror law and how to raise a family, how to work around relationships, and how to motivate people. Okay, before we do that, let's go now to the news, the stories from the front page of the Philippine Star. Malacanang says there is an emerging consensus among officials to extend general community quarantine until the end of the year. Metro Manila mayors have previously recommended placing the National Capital Region under GCQ for the rest of 2020. They say protocols on economic activities can be relaxed without downgrading the quarantine classification. Under GCQ, most industries can operate partially while restrictions against gatherings will remain in place. Metro Manila has been in GCQ since the second week of August. So we are already 7 months. We have improved from ECQ, modified ECQ to I don't know how many other levels there are, but in any case, that's the sensing of the mayors. To be blunt about it, makes no difference because right now, the government, to the credit of several cabinet members, have actually succeeded in relaxing the restrictions. And I guess the mayors simply want to ensure that things don't go crazy, don't go wild in their localities or in their area of responsibility. But my only question to this is, when will we grow up? When will we be able to take responsibility and take control of the situation? If you are going to use GCQ as an instrument, as an executive instrument, a management tool, you are using detention instead of creating or creation of systems. Kumbaga, I already suggested that yesterday, have health marshals, monitor your premises, control the flow of people. But if you are simply going to rely on detention, you are being lazy. I'm sorry, many of the mayors are my friends, but that's the lazy ass solution. We need to create systems. We need to put people in place to make sure we regulate people activity and also health protocols. Don't make prisoners of your constituents. Doon po sa mga botante, tandaan nyo lang kung sino yung mayor nyo para pagdating ng eleksyon, magkaalaman na tayo. Okay. The next news, the health department is now requiring COVID-19 survivors to immediately report to local authorities if they experience any recurring symptoms. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said DOH is conducting monitoring of survivors as it tries to gather evidence on long COVID, which has been reported in other parts of the world. Vergere said reports of lingering COVID in the country are mostly anecdotal as the DOH continues to collate information from survivors. To be quite honest about it, this quote, long COVID, unquote syndrome, sabi na nga nila, has been reported in many other countries. Hindi na po bago. What is disturbing about this is that we are asking the public to report to the DOH. There's something substantially wrong there. Patients are supposed to see their doctors and physicians are supposed to inform the DOH. Hindi po patients, okay? And we need to streamline this setup because, you know, when a patient goes to you think a patient will bother? Parang statistical input ninyo, pagod na nga ako, masakit na ulo ko, may problema ako, wala akong lakas, etc. because of the symptoms of long COVID, and then you ask us to report. I'm not being contrabida here, no? But the system is supposed to be that the patient goes to the doctor and the doctor reports to the hospital management or the DOH, not patient direct to DOH. Medyo please get the system right. Last but not the least, President Rodrigo Duterte promises to pay government's debt to the Philippine Red Cross. PhilHealth, the country's state insurer, currently owes Red Cross around 930 million pesos for conducting COVID-19 tests. In his address last night, Duterte assured Senator Richard Gordon, chairman of the Philippine Red Cross, the government will settle the unpaid debt. Ayan po, round 2. Okay, teng, 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 round 2. Bakit po? Because the president said that when, what's his name, was still the what you call it, the president said that when Rick, yung dating PhilHealth president, pasensya ka na Sir Rick, medyo trauma pa ako up to now. But in any case, that was an issue under the previous president of the PhilHealth, and no less than President Duterte said, babayaran yan, bayaran yan. Yan, nagka-shuffle kayo. Ayun, Rick Morales, Ricardo Morales, okay? Thank you, Gabby, for that catch there, for that save. In any case, round 2. So it's rather unfortunate that ano ba talaga? What kind of a setup do we have that it takes the president yet again, si Tatay Digong, as people call him, na naman ang pupuntahan o kailangan gumalaw for the system to actually address. Bayad utang lang po ito. And according to the new president of PhilHealth, kanya lang naman na-delay, teka, ayusin lang namin kung tama ba yung kontrata, tama ba yung terms of engagement, yung pricing, kasi baka siya naman yung maputukan. Okay, so anyway, let's go forward to the program, and we will now go to, wait a minute, let me just check my inputs here. We have, okay, let's go to our first guest for the day. We have with us the designated spokesperson. Medyo ano siya, first time, first in line siya. May hopefully long term siya. Designated spokesperson of the Anti-Terrorism Council and also an Undersecretary of the Department of Justice. Undersecretary Adrian Ferdinand Sugay. Good morning, Undersecretary.
Good morning, Cito. Good morning to our televiewers.
Okay, we, for the purpose or for the purpose of informing the public, I'll give you the opening number, front act ka, as they say, no? Para at least kung meron kang i-roll out na information, I understand IRR for the anti-terror law has been firmed up. So if there's a particular announcement, unahin mo na, sir. And then I will ask you about all the issues being raised against it. Para masagot mo rin, we are not going to be combative. We just want to address issues and also give you the opportunity to inform the public. Go ahead, Undersecretary.
Thank you, Cito. I'm glad to hear that. Well, first of all, as we all know, the Anti-Terror Act of 2020 was signed into law last July and has been in effect since. But under the Anti-Terror Act, the Anti-Terrorism Council with the Department of Justice is tasked to come up with the implementing rules and regulations within 90 days from effectivity. The 90 days, I understand, was up until last weekend, and we were able to finish the work, complete the work, and we were able to publish it in 2 newspapers of general circulation over the weekend, and have been able to register, submit a copy, certified true copy of the implementing rules and regulations with the Office of the National Administrative Register at the UP Law Center. So right now, the law as well as the implementing rules and regulations are already in effect and may already be used by the Anti-Terrorism Council and our law enforcement agency. Hopefully not to address specific incidents of terrorism, but more to prevent terrorism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's it. I can now go to the certain points of question. Okay. Sige, Yusek. Let me just go through this, ladies and gentlemen, para makasagot ang DOJ, no? Wait a minute. Petitioner said the provision creates new grounds for warrantless arrests and grants the Anti-Terrorism Council a purely executive body judicial powers to authorize arrests. What is the reaction of the DOJ to that issue?
From our reading of the Anti-Terror Act, and also when we were interpreting it for purposes of preparing the IRR, we really did not see any grant or whether unauthorized, unlawful, or undue grant of judicial authority to the Anti-Terrorism Council, particularly with regard to arrests. The Anti-Terrorism Council, we want to be very clear about it, has no authority to order arrests. Under Section 29 of the law, what it does, what the ATC does, is to authorize a extended period of detention. Section 29 is detention without warrant of arrest. It's really it's for operational purposes. It's for purposes of ensuring that when a suspect is apprehended for being a suspected terrorist, that the Anti-Terrorism Council is able to order the law enforcement agencies or to authorize them to continue surveilling, or maybe that's the wrong term, maybe to continue talking to the suspected terrorists to continue to investigate, to find out whether or not there are other plans and whether or not he has other persons with him who plan to commit acts of terrorism. So when we talk about arrest of this person, this is pursuant to the rules on warrantless arrest under the rules of court. So it's there, Cito. So like, for instance, if he's caught in flagrante delicto or in the act, things like that. So it's there. It's the arrest. Section 29, as far as we're concerned, has to be read consistent with the rules of court on warrantless arrests.
Okay, kumbaga, nahuli ka in the act o may pinaplano kayo or naturo ka ng isang nahuli na, and therefore under the rules of court, the police or the military actually are authorized to act to prevent the commission of a crime or the further or continuing commission of a crime. So, nasa batas na yun.
Nasa batas yun. Maski ikaw dito, pag may nakita kang terorista dyan, it's something is being committed in your presence as a citizen under the rules of court, you can arrest that person. That's a warrantless arrest, and that's under the rules of court.
Okay, so yung ATC, the Anti-Terrorism Council, they are simply going to say, well, hinuli nyo na yan under the law, under the provisions of law. We are simply validating or authorizing the detention of this person kasi caught in the act naman yan. So walang abuse of authority yung ATC. But here's the question. The Anti-Terrorism Law changes the period of detention from 3 to 24. Yun pa rin ba yung provision right now based on the IRR o nabago ba?
Ay, hindi ganun yun. Cito, no, we cannot go beyond the IRR. What the IRR says, we cannot go beyond the law. What the law says is that the detention can be extended up to 14 days plus an extension of another 10 days upon a sworn certification submitted by the arresting officers. So total 24.
Okay. Now, may yung another issue being argued is the provision of the law lowers the constitutional standard for arresting a person from probable cause, kumbaga hinahinala na, may batayan na para hulihin yung tao, to mere suspicion. Parang itong si Cito mukhang terrorist to, hulihin nga natin. Parang ganon. What's your reaction to that?
Hindi naman, kasi nga, when we say it's warrantless arrest, consistent with the rules of court, ang standard niyan, Cito, is still probable cause. That is our position, and that is consistent with the rules of court, saka yung judicial pronouncements dyan, yung jurisprudence, it's still probable cause. Kung walang probable cause, then you have no cause to arrest. But if the Anti-Terrorism Council, di ba, upon reasonable suspicion, yun yung sinasabi dyan, suspicion, thinks that maybe there's cause for an extended detention, 14 or 10 days, they can authorize it.
Okay. Now, there's this provision that I don't know. Please confirm na lang kasi honestly, I haven't read it. Yusek Sugay, no, and
Sige,
I am as they would say, acting ignorant here for the sake
okay.
of everybody na hindi nakabasa, no.
Sige.
The IRR requires, excuse me, law enforcers to submit a sworn statement to secure authorization from the Anti-Terrorism Council to conduct warrantless arrests of suspected terrorists and to detain them from 14 to 24 days. No. So itong sworn statement, affidavit ba ito at sino yung tao, who is the person required to submit this and are they going to be held accountable based on their sworn statement? Kasi alam mo na, let's be fair, no?
Understand.
In the past kasi medyo may mga hulid up, may mga false accusation, etc. Pero ito mukhang maganda yung provision ng IRR. Kailangan may sworn statement. Is it an affidavit? And who issues it? A team leader, supervisor, chief of police, or whoever?
Yung sworn statement, affidavit talaga yan, ano? Para,
Mhm.
it's supposed to be under oath. Normally, that would be issued by the team leader, ano? So, but we leave that to the internal arrangements, ano? Yung operational issues. We leave that to the law enforcement agencies, no? But with that certification, that sworn statement, they are bound by the statements they made. Lalo na yung team leader, ano? So, in the event that there's a violation of the sworn statement, any allegations, pero hindi totoo dyan, and you end up detaining longer than you need to or no longer than you're supposed to be authorized to, may katapat yan, Cito, very heavy penalties under the Anti-Terror Act.
Okay, quickly na lang kasi alam ko may kasunod kang interview. I have to respect that. There's this issue of constitutionality on the 24-day detention that it violates the 1987 Constitution that imposes a 3-day limit to detention. I know the IRR is based on the law. The law has been passed. How do you address this constitutionality issue? Because that is now before the Supreme Court.
Sito, no, there's nothing in the Constitution that limits the period of detention. What it says is that you cannot suspend the writ of habeas corpus. And there is nothing, even in international agreements or the UN Security Council resolutions, which says that the detention can be shorter or longer than it needs to be. In fact, in other countries, the detention is much longer, months or even years. As far as we're concerned, there's no violation in the Constitution. The petition for a writ of habeas corpus is not suspended. In fact, anybody detained continues to have that remedy. So if you feel
Okay.
aggrieved, you feel like somebody can file on your behalf a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. So the cause for your, among others, and primarily the cause for your detention or your arrest, may be inquired into by the judge hearing the petition.
Okay, now, while the Human Security Act required authorities to bring arrested persons before a judge, the Anti-Terror Law and its Act and its, hindi na act ito, hindi ba? Anti-Terror Law na ito, and its IRR only requires notifying the nearest court
Yeah.
within 48 hours. Ngayon, Undersecretary Sugay, are they also required to at least inform the next of kin or relative? Kasi alam mo na, ang worry ko dito, baka katulad yan yun sa mga sasakyan, totoo yung sasakyan mo, hindi mo alam kung saan mo hahanapin yung sasakyan mo, mas nakakatakot kung tao yung inarrest, ni hindi alam ng mga kamag-anak na na-arrest pala. And it's happened. You know, I think you're quite young, so baka hindi ka martial law veteran. Ako yung martial law veteran and marami akong kaibigan na wala na lang eh.
Oo. I understand, no? Medyo na naman ako noon, may malay na ako ng martial law, no? So, I understand, the concerns, ano? So that's why what we did was not just notification to the judge, ano? And that is hand-delivered notification, Sito. Kasi alam naman namin noon di ba, that so many excuses, di ba, it did not get to the judge or what. So we required hand-delivered, personal notice to the nearest court, and also we required that within 48 hours, you're supposed to notify the Anti-Terrorism Council and also the Commission on Human Rights. So, abot sa kanila yung mga notices, no?
Paano?
Kasama yun.
Sorry, Yusek. Paano yung relative? Kasi, I mean, I think it's only fair and humane that we have a provision na you have to inform the relatives.
Yes. That's true. Pwede naman yun kasi yung constitutional rights mo naman, no? It's outlined in the IRR and in the law. It's all there. It's all intact. So you can get in touch with your counsel, even relatives. It's there. It's a given. It's considered written into the law.
Okay. Are you a lawyer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Kasi I'm not a lawyer, no? Pero ang pagkaintindi ko is if the law is silent on the matter, it's not a given. Kasi tayo naman, in good faith, we are presuming na, hindi, may karapatan yan. Dapat malaman na makakatawag siya sa kamag-anak niya. Is there the provision of I'm entitled to one phone call?
It's there. It's part of your constitutional rights. And then the law says that all your constitutional rights are intact. All your rights as an arrested person are intact and are to be protected under pain of heavy penalties on the part of the detaining officers.
Okay, sorry ayoko maging makulit yung Sugay, pero I'm just curious as a journalist, which part of the IRR does it say specifically that all the inherent constitutional rights of the detainee must be observed and respected?
Oo, nasa batas yan, nakasulat yan dito. All the constitutional rights,
Pasensya ka na.
No problem.
Para at least maiwasan na yung gagamitin pa ng iba para lumabo.
No problem. So nandito yan, well, at least under the implementing rules and regulations, there is a whole rule, on state guarantee of accountability and full respect for human rights. So nandito yung mandato ng Commission on Human Rights, and specific also are the rights of a person under custodial detention, which is really a reiteration of yung constitutional rights, or the rights of a person under custody under the Constitution. There are also issues here with regard to against torture, against the violation of the rights of a detainee, and also there has to be an official custodial logbook. There are crimes for against unauthorized revelation, infidelity in the custody. Nandito yan lahat.
Okay.
It's under Rule 11 of the implementing rules and regulations.
Okay, last question ko na lang, Yusek, kasi medyo yung meron daw provision itong IRR na malalagay yung pangalan mo sa listahan, majajaryo ka, malalagay ka doon sa website ng Anti-Terrorism Law, etc. Alam mo, ang worry ko lang dyan, my concern is that I have been a victim of same name situation. Meaning someone with the same name was charged with a particular crime or something, and every time punta ka sa NBI, naku, pupunta ka sa ibang department. Every time nasa Bureau of Immigration ka, pupunta ka sa iba. How do we make sure that there are no further victimization of poor individuals with the same name?
Alam mo, ano yan meron naman yan process of delisting, we call it. Once you're listed, once you're designated, there is a process of delisting. You have 15 days upon knowledge or upon being informed that you are part of this list to file a motion to delist. And there are certain grounds. One of these is mistaken identity. Things like that, or any other circumstance which would show that the basis for designation no longer exists. Things like this, it's there. So you have remedies.
Yeah,
so, nasama pangalan mo ron, pangalan mo si Antonio Santos, ano naman yan, and before naman you're designated, it really goes through a whole process.
Okay, just further clarification lang. when does a person's name end up on the list of suspected or actual terrorists? Kasi from what I understand, and you're the lawyer, a person is considered deemed innocent until proven guilty. Eh baka suspect ka pa lang, lumabas na yung pangalan mo dun sa listahan ng mga terorista.
Just to clarify at the very outset, Cito, no, when you talk about designation kasi, it's only primarily for purposes of directing the Anti-Money Laundering Council to go after your assets. And it's just based on probable cause. Pero there are three kinds, ha? Yung una, there's a United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373 list, no, of designated individuals and groups, no. So that goes through a whole process. You have Al-Qaeda and all similar groups, no. And
Yeah.
that is merely adopted by our Anti-Terrorism Council, and based on that, you're deemed designated. There's also, like, for instance, requests for designation coming from the EU or some other country, no. The EU is a supranational jurisdiction. We also adopt that, no. Also, there's domestic designation, but which is based on probable cause. It goes through a whole process, no. So before you even find yourself doon sa listahan na yan, mahaba-habang proseso na yung dinaanan mo. No, hindi naman yan parang nagising lang minsan yung Anti-Terrorism Council, sabihin natin, sama natin si ganito dyan sa listahan. No, it goes through a whole process.
Kasi yun ang nakakatakot, di ba? Meron lang mag-file ng kaso sa'yo o may mag-file ng complaint, hindi pa umaabot sa husgado, naka-blatter ka na, pagkatapos papasok na doon sa records ng some police group. And then before you know it, you haven't even been judged guilty or sentenced, and you already have substantially a record that is not binding.
It goes through a really, really long process, ito. And particularly with regard to designation by the Anti-Terrorism Council. Of course, they are all aware, no? You make a wrong designation there, you're all going to be held liable. I'm sure, di ba, kung sino man yung matama dyan is going to, raise a, real hell, because of, having been included in that list. And so we will ensure that the process is followed and that it is followed to the letter.
Okay, well, congratulations. I hope that the DOJ finalized the IRR, and I hope that it will be used judiciously. And I pray that the officials of the DOJ are going to have eagle eyes on the implementation. Thank you very much, Undersecretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Cito. Good morning.
Good morning. Yan po si Undersecretary Sugay, and he just clarified, Undersecretary Adrian Sugay, who just clarified certain issues regarding the IRR or the provisions for implementation of the Anti-Terror Law. Kahit po naka-file na yan sa Supreme Court yung mga challenge, effectively it is a law. It was a law as of July, and they were given 90 days to put up the IRR, which they did last weekend, and they did publish it in 2 major newspapers. So ayun na, it has the strength of law already. Now, we'll go for a break. When we come back, kausapin naman natin yung dalawang abogado na madalas din sa agenda. Let's find out what are their thoughts on this, and any concerns and any suggestions, but baka medyo too late the hero na unless it is taken up with the Supreme Court. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, you're back on the program agenda. You are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250. And you can also watch us via Facebook, facebook.com/OneNewsPH, and on YouTube, One News PH. And kung wala pa po kayong signal, paalaala lang, magpakabit na po, subscribe to Signal TV, because not only do you get to watch agenda 3 times a day, you can also watch other programs, particularly the PBA, and medyo pa bakasyon na yung NBA, nag-champion na yung LA. Para sa inyong mga binibiro ako dahil kulay lavender yung pader ng bahay ko, tinatawag niyong LA Lakers sa headquarters. Well, panalo sila. Although, I'm sorry, I'm not really a Lakers fan. I'm not an NBA. I'm not a fan of any particular team. I just like watching individual players. In any case, let's go on with our second half of the discussion on the anti-terror law. We bring in now Attorney Domingo Cayosa, President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, also a corporate and litigation lawyer and leading advocate for environmental protection, alternative dispute resolution, and human rights. Attorney, good morning sa'yo. Welcome back.
Good morning, Cito, at magandang umaga sa nanonood at nakikinig sa inyong programa.
Okay, nadinig mo naman siguro yung mga explanation ni Undersecretary Sugay, and I am curious, as would be many people, what is the general sentiment of lawyers in the Philippines, you being the IBP President, regarding the IRR and the Anti-Terrorism Law?
Well, what the lawyers of the Philippines, or any lawyer for that matter, would know is that the IRR cannot rise above the law that it seeks to implement or to clarify.
Mhm.
And that's a very basic principle in law. As a matter of fact, Yusek Sugay and other officials of the Department of Justice have admitted that kung ano man ang gusto nilang ayusin dito sa batas na to, their hands are tied because the implementing rules cannot go beyond, above, or less than what the law prescribes. Unfortunately for them, the law has been challenged on constitutional grounds. So whatever they do with the IRR, it will be severely limited with the provisions of the law. And that's why most probably the details set forth in the IRR will also be similarly challenged logically by the 37 petitioners.
Okay, let's bring in Attorney Howard Calleja. He teaches law in various notable law schools, including Ateneo de Manila University. He has his own law firm. Howard Calleja, Attorney Calleja, are you there? Okay, there we
Yes,
go.
good morning, Cito. And of course, good morning, Mr. President Egon, my good friend. And sayang wala na si Yusek Sugay, also a co-Atenean, a good friend as well.
Yeah, okay. He had another interview, so hindi ko mapagsabay kayong tatlo. But in any case, Attorney Egon Cayosa has already, Attorney Cayosa already pointed out, Howie, that, oops, nalaglag yung cellphone ni.
Sorry.
Yan na, sinasabi ko sa inyo, basahin niyo yung tutorial ko sa digital while Howie is setting up his...
Ito pa. I'm back.
Okay. Howie, nadinig mo naman yung reaction ni IBP President. What's your reaction? You're one of the petitioners who went to the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the law. What are your sentiments after hearing Undersecretary Sugay and going through the IRR?
Yes, a reading of the IRR, I agree naman with Yusek Sugay and IBP President Egon na since the law is to us patently unconstitutional, it appears that the IRR as well, which is patterned under the law, is patently unconstitutional as well. So the IRR cannot even cure the law. no? So they cannot go beyond what is stated, and as we said na it is inconsistent with the Constitution. So a reading of the IRR would show the same, that the IRR is still and is also inconsistent with their Constitution and with our rule of law.
Okay, Attorney Cayosa, what happens if the Supreme Court essentially decides it's unconstitutional? Does the entire law get flushed down the toilet? Or yung bang mga petitioners would end up just having their challenges introduced to the law? Paano ba yung sistema? Alam mo, igno tayo eh.
Well, the process is this, and the basic rules are this. Number one, if the petitioners raise issues with particular provisions, then that will be engaged. But many of the petitioners, mind you, say key provisions, and they cited them, are unconstitutional. And they also say, because these are key provisions, the whole law is unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court has to decide whether or not indeed the whole law is unconstitutional, or it will just invalidate some of the provisions and say the other provisions will stand. Because the general rule really is, if the other provisions can survive despite the declaration of unconstitutionality of some provisions of a law, then the law proceeds, minus those provisions that are declared unconstitutional. But in this particular case, the provisions attacked or questioned by the petitioners are really key provisions that if these are so declared unconstitutional, there's no sense continuing with the law. So that may be the possibility. So it now depends on how the Supreme Court evaluates and weighs the facts, the circumstances, and the arguments of the petitioners, as well as the Solicitor General representing the government.
Attorney Calleja, and I'll just ask you a question, and then after you answer this, free for all na, no? But Attorney Howie, matanong ko lang, no? There were 37 petitioners, akala ko 30 lang eh. 37 petitioners challenging many parts of the law. I'm sure medyo binasa mo na rin yung petition ng mga iba, also Attorney Cayosa. Were the petitioners simply challenging portions of the law, thereby giving the Supreme Court a window to simply address deficiencies of the law, or is it really an attack on the entirety of the law so that it gets thrown out?
Cito, a reading of it now, we are 37 petitioners as of today. Some of them, like us, enumerated provisions that are unconstitutional. Some, as already stated by President Egon, calls for the total unconstitutionality of the whole law. So, depende yan dun sa petitioners. And some of it, because they already pinpointed important provisions there. For example, yung kay Dean Mel pointed out academic freedom. So, that is additional to him. Or yung mga indigenous communities, they pointed out provisions that are unconstitutional to the indigenous communities. Ganon. So there are some specific petitions specific to the petitioner's cause or advocacies, for example.
Okay. Now, Attorney Egon, okay, sige, yan. Sinasabi sa inyo, papatayin ninyo yung mga yan. In any case, Attorney Egon, regarding yung mga reaction kanina ni Yusek Sugay, he was basically saying the warrantless arrest, all the provisions of the, of the law are based on pre-existing law. What's your reaction to that? Kasi parang hindi ko nasabi kanina, well, if they're based on pre-existing law, why do we need a new law? Pero hindi kasi ako lawyer eh.
Yeah. So
I lost you there, Cito.
No, the Undersecretary Sugay said the IRR and the anti-terror law is based on existing laws.
No, it's not based on existing laws. It actually repeals the Human Security Act in totality. So it is a totally new concept here because if you look at the totality of the law, it significantly and fundamentally changes the equation because past this Human Security Act or anti-terrorism laws that we had really rely on well-established crimes, and then because of the circumstance of
Okay. Yeah. I think we're losing the signal of President Egon. Howie, can you just catch
Yeah.
it for the meantime
Yeah.
until we fix
Yes, Sito, no, as per Yusek Sugay, for example nga yung example mo kanina, Sito, na warrantless arrest. Yes, understood, we have warrantless arrest under our law. However, kung titingnan natin yung warrantless arrest under our law is when you have committed a crime or when you have just committed a crime or the police saw you committing a crime, yung tinatawag natin na hot pursuit. Pero dito sa anti-terror law, nakalagay doon, intend to commit a crime. So, even your intent, you're only suspected of intending to commit a crime. So, Sito, imagine, in the previous law that we have for warrantless arrest that we allow, you already committed a crime or you have had just committed a crime. So, meron ng crime na na-commit. Itong dinadagdag ng anti-terror law, you are suspected of committing or suspected to intend to commit a crime. So, ang labo nito, how can you even think of the mind of the individual? Wala pang ginagawa. Number one, no? Number two, when you are in the warrantless arrest under previously under our present law, you have to be charged immediately after arrest. Here, you have been detained under a warrantless arrest and you are being detained beyond the required limits of the law, which is 12 hours, 18 hours, and 36 hours. Or in the extreme instance when there is no habeas corpus, 3 days under the Constitution. Here, under the anti-terror law, you are arrested without a warrant, and yet you are detained outside the 36 hours maximum, outside the 3 days maximum under the Constitution, and the ATL is given 14 days plus an additional of 10 days. So that's a total of 24 days, Sito, that you are not being charged of any crime. Worse, if you look at the IRR, ang nakalagay doon, they can arrest you, and if there is no notice from the ATC, the arresting officer can ask for a notice from the ATC after your arrest. So inaresto ka na, wala pang notice from ATC. So it violates, again, another thing, because if you look at it, under our Constitution, only the judges or only the judiciary can issue a warrant. Now, technically, if they ask the ATC for a notice, yung notice from the ATC, that is technically a warrant. So, that is, again, outside the realm of our Constitution and our law, because nobody else can issue a warrant except a court. No, here the ATC is allowed to issue a warrant. And another thing that I see at the IRR, which I was bringing up even before during the signing of the law, is that they are always talking about the ATC. However, when you look at here, even the IRR in the ATC, it's composed of 9 members. So when the note, for example, the notice from the ATC, or when the designation of a terrorist as in the ATC, who in the ATC designates or gives the notice? Is it all 9 members? Is it a majority of the 9 members? Is it one of the 9 members? Hindi natin alam. So paano yan? Anong mangyayari ngayon? And when you delist, for example, 9 members say you are a terrorist, nag-apply ako ng delisting. Who delists again? All 9 members again? A majority of that? Paano na naman yan? And if you look at the ATC, nakalagay doon, the ATC has no quasi-judicial or judiciary powers. Malinaw to, very executive powers lang sila. But to decide who is a terrorist, who is there to be detained? Who is there to be delisted? Those are judicial
Okay.
processes.
Uh,
Paano na ngayon yan?
Okay, let's ask President Egon kasi tumutungo ka kanina, nagre-react ka, President Egon. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the basic principle that is violated is the checks and balances because under ordinary laws, criminal laws, and the Constitution, the executive may on probable cause, but the executive has to charge you within a specified number of hours and days, maximum in the Constitution days, in extreme limits, to charge you before an impartial judge, the judge can independently, meron bang basehan yung sinasabi mong probable cause? In this part, so there's checks and balances. In this law, they throw away the checks and balances and allow the ATC, which is practically an alter ego of the president because all the 8 members are alter egos of the president. They're cabinet secretaries, and the executive director of the AMLA is also in the executive branch to decide that they can detain you for 24, maximum of 24 days. So walang
Okay. Medyo nawala ulit signal ni President Egon. Howie, what's your thoughts on the fact that the executive committee na sinasabi nga kanina ay puro cabinet members? I don't know, medyo is that written in stone that yung Anti-Terrorism Council ay puro cabinet members or pwede silang mag-assign ng ibang tao? Kasi parang yung IATF, cabinet members. Pagkatapos ito, ATC, cabinet members na naman. Parang gumagawa na lang ng paraan to control everything with the same players.
Yes, Cito. Under the law, which we question, the ATC is formed by 9 individuals. Yun nga, 8 cabinet members and the executive director of the AMLA. So that's 9 members. So cast in stone because nasa batas yan. So hindi sila pwede magdagdag o masama ng iba. They can have assistants or other people to assist them. Pero technically, the Anti-Terrorism Council, as defined under the law, the Anti-Terrorist Law, is 9 members composed of Department Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Interior, DILG, DOJ, a National Security Advisor, Executive Secretary, yun, mga ganon, yun ang mga member, no, and others ng ATC. And as I said, that siguro dadagdagan ko yung sinabi ni President Egon, yun nga yung checks and balance dito, no? Kasi if you look at the membership, sabi nga natin, those are alter ego, those are cabinet members. For example nga, sinabi nila na determined by the ATC as probable cause. Ang isa sa head doon, iba, DOJ Secretary. So, so magque-question ka ngayon sa mga piskal or whoever na member ng judiciary, sila rin ang decide. So the people that decided you are designated as a terrorist, doon ka rin mag-aapela ng delisting. The people who decided there is probable cause to charge you or to put you as a terrorist, doon ka rin maghingi ng recourse to take out that, to question that probable cause. So the question is, how can you now question if they already decided that you are a terrorist or if they already decided that there is probable cause to charge you? Yun ang sinasabi natin, walang checks and balance. And to point out in balance, kasi sinabi ni, going to the statement of Sugay that you expounded kanina, na yun nga, you give a notice to the human rights, you even give a notice within 48 hours. Cito, you remember, the word used is notice. You did not say that you are being charged in front of a judge. So the judge cannot even decide on your case because the judge only has a notice that you are incarcerated. Unang-una, there is no jurisdiction over the person because hindi ka naman sinusurrender sa korte. There's also no jurisdiction to the subject matter because walang kaso. So how can the judge decide on you? How can the judge even say or give any order in your favor? Kami bilang abogado, pagpunta namin sa judge na may notice, ang sasabihin lang ng judge, wala namang kaso sa akin eh. Anong didesisyonan ko? So yun ang tanong ko kay Yusek Sugay kanina. So kung may notice, anong magagawa ng notice? In that 24 days na nakakulong ka, anong cause of recourse mo? Anong action mo para makawala ka? Wala. Tatanungin mo sa ATC rin. Ang ATC is the one that detained you and you will go to the ATC. Saan nga yung checks and balance doon? Who will check the ATC? And in those 24 days, Cito, if they did not charge you, pakakawalan ka lang, hindi mo man sila ma-charge ng unlawful detention or wrongful arrest. Because
Mhm.
under the law, the only obligation of the detaining officer or the arresting officer is to notify the human rights and notify the courts within 48 hours. Yung kanilang wrongful arrest is kumbaga not being punished if they give the notice. Napakadali naman magbigay ng notice dito within 48 hours. Sabi nga ni Yusek Sugay, magbibigay ka lang ng information o ng letter. Di tapos na yung boxing, arestuhin ka, tapos magbigay ng letter, pwede kang i-detain ng 24 hours nang walang kasalanan. Yun ang isa sa mga ina-avoid natin among other things in this law, no? Sito.
Well, I have to give room for Yusek Sugay also regarding his position. Pero ang tanong ko lang, no, kasi kanina one thing that bothered me was that he couldn't really tell me specifically in black and white na may provision sa IRR na kung damputin ka o damputin ako, na the arresting officers or team are required by law or by the IRR to inform my relatives. And dito sa Pilipinas kasi parang walang the right to a phone call or the right to call my lawyer. Eh parang, kasi ang upbringing ko, or at least my knowledge of the law, if the law is silent, then it's not. Eh, anong thinking ninyo tungkol dyan, the absence of a specific provision?
Tama naman po yun. I agree with that, Cito, because clearly under our law, syempre pwede kang ino-notify naman yung mga abogado. No? Yung relatives, hindi naman nakasulat yan. Although, ginagawa yan ng police. Ang problema nga namin na sinasabi dito, pagpunta mo dun sa arresting officer o dun sa nag-detain, it's really up to his discretion. So, hindi kasi nakasulat. So, kung gusto niyang ibigay o gusto niyang bigyan ka ng phone call at sabihin niya, yung phone call ko limitado sa abogado mo lang, hindi na sa kamag-anak mo. Di tapos ka na, sa abogado ka lang makikipag-usap. Bahala na yung abogado mag-inform ng mga kamag-anak mo kung alam niya. So, ganun yun. So, again, it would boil down to the discretion of the arresting or detaining officer. And I agree with you. Wala yun doon. But of course, under our law, they are supposed to inform, at least to give you a chance to call your lawyer or to give it's a constitutional right to give you a right to inform, no? So kung gusto mong tawagan yung kamag-anak mo, pwede dapat pagbigyan nyo, tawagan mo yung kamag-anak mo. Pero kung gusto mo rin tawagan yung abogado mo, nasa sayo rin yun. It's really up to you. But it's not written there.
You were talking about accountability a while ago. Ito bang Anti-Terrorism Council, katulad ba yan ng ombudsman, ng other constitutional body na hindi mo sila pwedeng idemanda? Okay, I don't know. I think Howie's connection medyo suspicious na rin ako dito. Bakit pag ayan na, si Attorney Cayosa. Attorney, paano ba ito? Constitutional body ba yung ATC na yan? Hindi pwede i-demanda, etc.?
No, it's not a constitutional. It's just a creation of the Anti-Terrorism Law. So, batas lang po yan. So, they don't have any constitutional immunity from suit. Except that, of course, what happens here is since the law does not specify any liability on their part, then if ever you're aggrieved by any of their decisions, then you'll have to go through the general administrative law or the provisions of the civil code, or perhaps the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Unlike the previous Human Security Act kasi, kaya hindi na-abuso yun despite some draconian provisions kasi very specific ang nakalagay. if you are detained by any arresting officer as a terrorist, suspected terrorist, at mali yan, at mali yung pagka-detain mo, they pay a fine of 500,000 every day. So ingat na ingat yung mga law enforcers. But this time around, you don't have that focused responsibility. Kung dinetain ka for 24 days at nagkamali pala, sasabihin, ay sorry, mali, sorry palalayaan ka na namin. During the course of but in 24 days, 14 days, or even just a day, there's so much prejudice to you. That also includes designation of terrorists. Kasi pag na-designate ka under the law, ipapublish siya. So, kung nagkamali sila, ano ang recourse mo? Just the general principles of criminal law, administrative law, or the civil code, which is, as every lawyer would know, called comfort for somebody who is in prejudice. So, without this specific liability, magiging reckless o magiging masyadong cavalier maari ang mga desisyon ng ATC.
Okay, well, I'll have to end it at that. Attorney Cayosa, Attorney Calleja, thank you for joining us this morning. We've run out of time, pero I do hope the Supreme Court gives this an independent assessment and independent judgment kasi sobra talagang daming maaapektuhan pag ito ay naabuso. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Cito, and thank you, President Egon.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you very much.
Okay, yan po si Attorney Egon Cayosa, President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and Attorney Howard Calleja. And ayun po, nadinig nyo na, no? And both sides have their views, have their concerns, and Yusek Sugay was very reassuring, but at the same time, medyo very disturbing naman yung fine details that both Attorney Cayosa and Attorney Calleja are raising. So we just do hope, and I implore all of you viewers, no, kahit na hindi kayo mahilig sa law, sa mga batas, sa mga court proceedings, this is something that affects the country as a whole. Okay, as a people, this kind of laws affect us. Let's just pray for the members of the Supreme Court that God would give them the wisdom, the courage, and the independence to see through the provisions of the law, the IRR, and the petitions so that a fair and true judgment is made, not something that is swayed, influenced, or brought about by whatever impressions. Wisdom, fairness, truthfulness, good judgment. We'll go for a quick break, and when we return, we'll go to our third and final guest for the morning, Pastor Peter Tanchi. We hope we have better connections with him because what he will share is from his book, Motivate, and I personally will tell you it makes a lot of sense to get the book, read the book, and live by the book. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250. Now we bring to you a well-known personality, particularly in the spiritual realm. He is the senior pastor of Christ Commission Fellowship, the author of Motivate, 8 Secrets of Successful Parenting, and someone who is known to me personally, someone I look up to and respect, Pastor Peter Tanchi. Pastor Peter, welcome to the program.
Hi, Sid. Sid, I got a surprise for you.
What?
You want to see my secret weapon?
Oh, what?
Oh, ito. Konting secret weapon. Yan, just in case.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome to the program to both of you. And, okay, medyo na.
You'll be very happy. You'll be very happy. Sid, regards to your wife, huh?
Okay, well, they're both in the Netherlands right now, but we don't have much time, so I got to speed it up para we can cover everything.
Sure.
Both of you are examples of perfect parenting. You've gone through challenging things, but I love your book, Motivate. And in fact, I didn't buy this. I was viewing your preaching. I was led by the Lord to view your preaching about 4 weeks ago. And on the second Sunday, a friend of mine said, "Hey, bro, I have that book. You should read the book." So I went through it. And can you just bring us through Motivate as a couple, as parents? Because right now, during pandemic, there's so many people locked down, trapped at home, and they're not taking advantage of parenting time and time with the family. So the show is all yours. Please go ahead, Pastor Peter and Fiona. Fiona. Ba't ko sinasabi Fiona?
Surprise.
Yeah. So, Sid, your question again is why is this book important, relevant, family, parenting? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the reality is, I believe all parents love their children. All parents would love to have a wonderful time with their parents, with their children. I mean, all parents. The only problem is, the reality is, many of them have not been trained to be good fathers, good mothers. And most of us probably learned parenting from our parents. So if our parents have some bad habits, bad modeling, we pass this on to our children. And the reality is, parents, we love our children, but then we get hurt when they don't turn out to be the way we like them to become. And that's why I believe during this pandemic, parents can really, I would say, go back to basics. And this is something that my wife and I have been burdened to do, to teach parents from a biblical perspective. The first principle is basically this: God invented marriage, and marriage can only be experience. Parenting will be experienced in the most, shall I say, effective, wonderful, enjoyable way if we follow God's design for fathers and mothers.
Okay, Diona, I watched the videos, the preaching at the Christ Commission, and also I read the book and parts of the book at least. And I noticed that this isn't just about parenting. It also applies to couples, because a lot of people might think, I don't have kids. We're just a new couple. But I noticed the first word, the first alphabet is letter M, modeling, and it is usually the wives who will call out the husbands. You are preaching, but you are not modeling. Please join us and give us your inputs regarding this.
Well, first, the title of the book is Motivate. So it's an acronym on how to motivate our children and how to have lasting impact in the lives of others for eternity. So first letter is M, and I'm a very fortunate wife, and our children are very fortunate children, because Peter is he believes in the one man principle. So what he preaches, he models at home, he models in public. He's not, there's no duplicity about him. So I don't have to tell him what to do because he's filled with the Spirit of God and he follows Christ and he's authentic. So if he does make a mistake, he's very open to correction. And of course, I think he would tell me more what to do than I would tell him what to do. So he's been my mentor, my model, and I thank God for him.
Okay.
Sid,
Yeah.
Sid, the secret is not perfection. The secret of modeling is authenticity. If you make a mistake, and we all do, we admit it, we ask for forgiveness. And children will respect parents more if they are willing to be authentic, to be honest.
Mhm.
Not to cover up, but to own up.
Yeah, and the word modeling applies to so many things. You can be a model for financial integrity, moral integrity. You can be a model of how to do proper housekeeping, etc. You don't just teach people verbally. You need to show people verbally. I
Yeah.
mean, physically. Okay, now go ahead,
The
Jonah.
reality is our words speak louder, our actions speak louder than our words. So values are more caught than taught. They see us and they copy us. That's sobering, and that is a big responsibility to steward them for God.
And
Right.
Sid,
Yeah, go
Cito,
ahead.
I like the way you preface it. There are many aspects of modeling. But I fully agree with you also that what is really lacking for us fathers, we like to teach our children a livelihood. We want to pass on skills,
Mhm.
but the reality is how to live your life, character, attitude. These are foundational. So
Okay.
I believe modeling really involves all of the above, plus, most important, character.
I just want to point out to the viewers, if you look at your children, your sons and daughters who may be halfway through their adult life or grown up already, what they are is because of what you were. When I listened to this modeling episode, Pastor Peter and Diona, I looked at my daughter and I said, "Oh my God, she's a mini me," and she's basically a female version of me. Now let's go to the letter O. Open communication. I think when this was being discussed, Peter was a little more reserved. Diona, you were more open because open communication is ideal, but there are certain topics that most of us men have problems talking about. One is on the sex issue, and this other is on the pride and respect issue. What do both of you have to say about open communication?
Well, okay. Open communication, the basic idea is no topics is off limits. Secondly, you begin to open up yourself.
Mhm.
Because open communication, you want to see the heart of your children. Cito, our problem is that we don't have any real machine to find out what the children are thinking, what's in their heart. Now we can have X-ray machine to see the physical heart, but what about the real heart? What are they afraid of? What do they love? What are their dreams? Most parents have no clue. So this is where open communication comes in. You allow your children to speak up, and therefore be very careful in your reaction, in telling them, this is something you cannot say, or you begin to become defensive. You want to encourage your children just to open up, but you may have to open up yourself first.
Okay, Diona, did you ever encounter or see this in Peter or with your children? How, because a lot of women will say, how do I get my husband to talk, to open up? Because me, for the longest time, I just kind of keep it to myself, and then I would just blow up. And then I would end up having to explain to Karen, the reason I got mad was this, and that. And she would say, why didn't you just tell me from the very beginning? Diona?
Yes, I think that one of the things that Peter had to learn, as with all of us, to listen That has to be very intentional, because many of us as parents, our communication style is lecture, and lecturing is the least effective communication style. It's in one ear and out the other. So over the years, he really did learn to listen, ask questions, to draw them out, to better understand. The thing is that when they do speak, if what they say you don't like, then immediately you want to correct them. But this is where we make problems. Once you react and you say, "What? You did that?" then it slams the door on open communication. So you have to let them process, listen, ask questions. And as he shared, be transparent. Don't come across as perfect, but share your own mistakes, your own journey, and then what you learn from it and what they can learn, and the journeys of others without telling names. So they learn from examples as well. But Peter is not basically a talker. He doesn't want to talk a lot. He's more of a person to help people process. He's more of a coach in that sense.
Okay, but having said all of that, would you affirm or confirm what my observation is, that when men, women, parents actually share their mistakes or tell their stories of mistakes to their children, the children learn more?
Yes, exactly. And then they can open up too, because, wow, mom opened up or dad opened up. Then I feel, because the open communication is an environment created where a person feels safe to say anything without the fear of being judged, scolded, rejected. And once they can take tiptoe steps and they say, "Oh, I can share that," then the more they feel they can open up, they feel comfortable sharing anything.
Okay. Then the next one is time. Is time still a concern during COVID-19 lockdown? Because I kind of wonder about some people. They're doing everything except parenting and speaking to each other as couple. Peter?
Well, Cito, time, if you remember what I shared in the book, it is not just quality, it's also quantity. But you can have quantity time without quality, and that's bad also. So many parents are forced to be together, but they don't make it fun for the kids. They don't make it attractive for the kids. So for me, if I want to go back to your question about the communication side, my biggest problem, Sid, is listening. I think for us men, when they tell us a problem, our mind is working. How will I fix up the problem? But for children, and especially for wives, especially my wife, sometimes she just wants to share, and then all they want us to do, Sid, is listen. They don't even need to know the solution. So you and I, our problem is we want to give our children all the solution immediately. And then, that won't be fun. So I'm learning. That is my hardest challenge, partner. Listen, listen, listen. To my staff, to my disciples, to my wife. So see, this time of lockdown, it's a reminder. Peter, listen to your wife and make it quality time when my kids visit us. Right.
Okay, I got to speed this up because we only have 5 minutes to go. But just the thing here, you mentioned listen. We have a house rule. The girls come to me or will call me and tell me, opening line, "Papa, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix the problem. Just listen." Okay. Now,
Very good.
next word, Diona, is intimacy. Can you speak? It's like speaking French to me. Intimacy.
Yeah. So a biological relationship does not guarantee intimacy. It has to have an element of intentionality, where when you want to get to be intimate, it requires modeling, open communication, time. For children, love is spelled time. So in intimacy, you get to know them and enter their world. You do what they like to do, not just force them to do what you like to do. You're there to, understand them and create memorable moments where you really go out and vacations, and then the magic moment. Maybe Peter can speak to magic moment.
Well, magic moments are time when you sense that they're opening up, and then you capitalize on it. For children, it's hard to say, let's have a cup of coffee and talk. I mean, Cito, you and I, we are men. We don't talk like that. So you have to catch it. So it's called you seize the moment.
Okay. Now, what about vision? I'm very interested in this vision thing. because I'd like to think I've been giving my daughter concepts of vision, but I may not be fully aware of what you're trying to teach.
Well, for vision, I like to share with them that number one, God has an amazing plan for their lives.
Mhm.
And that vision is something that they need to grasp as they are growing in the Lord to realize what is God's plan purpose for their lives. You know, Sid, what you don't want to do and what I don't want to do is my children to develop a man, a woman centered vision where it's all about themselves. That is more tragic. Imagine pursuing a goal that is not from God. So that is very important. Then I want to involve them. I want to let them see what I'm doing. But I instruct them about God's plan, God's mission for all of us. And then I inspire them. So these are the basic principles. You involve them, then you inspire them.
Okay, what about affirmation? It's not a very common word for Filipinos. Diona, affirmation?
Well, the power of affirmation is that it's very motivational. Most of us tend to look at the mistakes and we're correctional. So I ask people, is your home an affirmation
Typical.
center or is it a correctional facility? We need to really be intentional in affirming. So what does it mean? You're intentional. You have like detective eyes to see the gifts and abilities of the child that maybe they're not aware of. Then you affirm them and give them opportunities to develop it and then show them how they can use it. So affirmation, more than correction, really will spur people on to positive change.
You know, Sid, I
Yeah.
give the tagline, CEO, Chief Encouraging Officer. That's our job,
Mhm.
not CDO, Chief Discouraging Officer.
Okay, well, that's very positive because my father was part-time parole officer, and but one time he did tell me just casually, you know what, Cito, when you put your mind into something, you almost always succeed, and that's the key to your life. And to this day, I carry that, and that's what drives me. Now, what about teach and train? I haven't gotten there, but I think I'm practicing it. But I'm. Could you expound on it?
Teaching is communicating information. It's different from training. Training involves teaching, but training is more than teaching. Training is developing internal convictions. It is
Mm.
making something that they begin to internalize values. So training helps somebody live out what you teach them. It becomes a habit, but it is internalized.
Okay. Now, what about the last one, which is entrust? It's a big word for both of you. I know both of you trust each other implicitly, but trusting your children, that's kind of different story.
Well, when I say entrust, foundational, first, they have to be connected to God and trust them to God. If our children are not intimate with God, they don't live a life to please God because they don't trust Him, everything will be a problem. But Sito, just imagine if our children trust the Lord and they fall in love with the Lord, everything we are teaching becomes easier. They will want to respect people, they will want to obey us, they'll want to be holy. This problem with drugs, premarital sex, these problems will become secondary because they have come to know the Lord and you
Okay, I think we are freezing there on the signal, but in any case, we've essentially run out of time. But I think Pastor Peter and Diona were able to communicate that point that we need. Oh, there we go. Okay, we entrust. You were saying entrust, and Pastor Peter, Diona, I want to thank you for the time you shared. I do hope in the future we'll have a longer opportunity. This is just the first. And as far as the entrust, I entrusted my daughter to the Lord. And now I can, at least with ease, go about my life, even though she's there living her own life in the Netherlands. Thank you for your great book, Pastor Peter, Diona, and thank you for your time joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sito. Privilege.
Okay. Okay, that's Pastor Peter Tanchi and his lovely wife Diona, and they are such a great couple, such a great example of strength, commitment, and loyalty to the Lord, and they are such a blessing. And the book is Motivate. Apparently, the book I have is probably the first issue. I have to give this back to my friend Christopher Salva, who lent it to me. In any case, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a good morning. Kindly, may I request for just a short prayer for me because medyo montik-montik na po ako kahapon. I fell into the equivalent of a manhole and almost broke many parts of my body. I'm just in pain right now and living on painkillers. Thank you very much. Have a great day. God bless all of you.